Hello to the course participants and all the YouTube viewers in day 13 and 14 bonus material of the Web Developer in 30 Days from Scratch course. Today we spent a lot of time learning about the box model, and in the bonus material I would like to create and style a button, which is a perfect example of working with the box model of our element on the website. So without any long talks, let's just get started. What you can see on your screen right now is the final effect of our button, which looks something like this. And if we hover on it with our mouse cursor, we get such an effect. Exactly like this. I think this is an interesting exercise for us. I'll show you some properties that we didn't use before, so it might be interesting both for the course participants and all the YouTube viewers on our channel. This is the starting point of our project. As you can see, all I have in my document is a simple HTML structure. All I have in my body tag is one button with the text of button, which you can see exactly on your screen right now. This is the default HTML button, and now we would like to style it. So let's create a style tag in our document like this. Let's do a simple style reset. I'll use the asterisk symbol, which means take all the elements on our website and set to them the properties in the CSS rule. What I want to reset is margin to 0 and padding also to 0. We can see the differences already. So now let's get to style our body tag. Like this. And what I want to have in my body tag is the background color set to black, and its text align set to center, because the button element has the display inline block property set by default, so it's treated as a simple text by its parent. So this property text align with the value of center will center this button in our whole body tag, which is in practice our whole website. Let's save our file to see it, and voila, our body's background is black and its text align is set to center, which makes our button in the middle of our website. Now we can go to style our button already. Let's refer to it with the tag of button. Let's set its padding to 15 pixels from the top and the bottom, and 40 pixels from the left and the right. We can see the effect already. Let's get rid of the border, which is set by default. We want it to have a border none. We can see it as well. Let's separate it from the top edge of the browser window with a margin. Let it be 50 pixels. That's all right. Let's change it background color to yellow like this. Let's set its font size to 40 pixels like this. Now this padding doesn't look exactly how I want it. I made some kind of error because I can see it's 10 pixels from the left and right, and I wanted to have it 40 pixels, just like this. Its default font family should be Arial by default, but we can also set it manually just in case, because it depends on the browser. And let's say that we want it to have an Arial on every browser and on every operating system. Let's make this text transform to uppercase like this. Let's use a little bit of the letter spacing 2 pixels, for example, should be fine. Let's see it. I think it's look better. We can also change its font weight to bold. Let's see how this looks. I think it's fine. We can keep it that way. Now the first thing I didn't show you before, let's make those corners, those edges of our button round a little bit. And to make it, we can use the property of border radius. We can set it in pixels, for example, 5 pixels. You can see it's a little round right now. The highest value, the more round our element will be on its edges. The higher value, the more round our element will be. Let's say for our example, we want it to be 20 pixels, like this. I think it looks fine. And now the second property I didn't tell you about and I didn't show you, and it's the box shadow. The box shadow property takes the 5 values inside. Let me show you this in an example. Let's make it 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 5 pixels, orange. Let's save our file. And this is the effect we will get. Now, box shadow is, as you can see, a shadow of our element. It's only in the appearance layer, not in the structure layer. It doesn't affect the other elements on our website. It's also not the part of the box model of our element. It's only a shadow. As I said, this property takes 5 values. The first one is moving the shadow on the x-axis. The second one is moving the shadow on the y-axis. The third one is the shadow blur. The fourth one is the border. And the fifth one is the color of our shadow. Let me play with those values so you could see it better. We define the first 4 values with the pixels, and then we place the color of our shadow. So as I said, the first one is moving the shadow on the x-axis. When we place 15 pixels, we will get 15 pixels, 55 pixels. That's how it works. We can also place the negative value. Then we will move it in the other direction. But let's leave the 5 pixels for now. The same situation is with the second value, which is moving the shadow on the y-axis. If we place 45 pixels, we'll get it 45 to the bottom. Minus 45, we'll get it 45 pixels to the top. So this is how this works. Let's leave 15 pixels for moving it to the left and the bottom, just so we can see it better. As I said, the third value is responsible for the blur of our shadow. If we, for example, set 30 pixels of the blur, you can see it's getting more blurred. 0 pixels, for example, will be no blur at all. Of course, it wouldn't be 0 pixels, but just 0. Because as we know, 0 doesn't need a unit. We can use 0 also in the second or the first value, like this. Now you can see our shadow didn't move on the y-axis. Or it can be done with the x-axis, like this. So we can play with it however we want. The fourth value is the border of our shadow. So we can increase the thickness of our shadow by this value, like this. We can make it bigger or smaller. And of course, the last one is its color. So now what we want to do with our element. We don't want to move our shadow nor to the left or right, as well as we don't want to move our shadow to the top or the bottom. So we place 0 as the first value, 0 as the second one. We don't need to blur our shadow as well. So 0 at the third one. So if we don't move it and don't blur our shadows, setting the border of our shadow will be an additional border to our element. And let's say we want it to be 6 pixels thick and we want to change its color to black. Just like this. And you may ask yourself why I did this. Now our shadow, so our artificial border, is not visible, but I placed it so after the comma we can get the next shadow, the second shadow, which will be underneath our first shadow. Let me show you how this works. With the second shadow, we also don't want to move it on the x-axis. We don't want to move it on the y-axis. We don't want to blur our shadow. And if we place now 6 pixels of the border of this shadow, it will be not visible since the black shadow will cover it. Remember that the second shadow is beneath the first one. So if we want the second shadow to be visible, for example, for those 6 pixels, we have to add 6 pixels of this black shadow to it. So we have to place 12 pixels to it. And now let's set its color to yellow. And this is the effect we will get. Remember that this first black shadow is the first one, so it occurs the second one. And the second starts exactly beneath the first one. So to have the same width, it has to be 2 times bigger. Because when we place 6 pixels right now, we don't see it at all. Because those 6 pixels are exactly underneath those black 6 pixels. So this is how it works. It's some kind of a trick, but it might look good and works good on our website. Have the nice effect, as you can see. Now if we place a button on our website, we can see that after hovering our mouse cursor on this button, the cursor doesn't change to a pointing hand. We can easily change that using the cursor property with the value of pointer, like this. And now when we hover on our button, we can see this nice hand, which indicates that our element is clickable. And this is the nice effect we want to get with our buttons. Now we want to set this nice effect of expanding this border area after hovering on our button. So what we have to do is to refer once again to our button, but now with the pseudo class of hover, like this. Using the pseudo class of hover to the element makes this element behave differently when we hover on it with our mouse cursor. So we can change, for example, its font color, its background color, or whatever we want to change. In our case, what we want to change is the box shadow. We want to expand the shadow to have this nice effect. So let's copy these values from here, place it right here. And what we really want to change is increasing these values from the border of our shadow. For example, let's make it twice as big as it was. So 12 pixels right here. And as we know, 24 pixels right here, because the 12 pixels of the yellow shadow will be exactly beneath the 12 pixels of the black shadow. Let's see how this works and looks on our website. I think this is too many semicolons right now. Let's have a look. And this is the effect we'll get. Maybe it's too much. Let's set 10 pixels here and 18 pixels right here. Let's save it. Now I think it's kind of cool. So what we are doing here is expanding the thickness of our both shadows, and we are getting this effect. Now you can see that the change is instant, and we can change this with the transition property. Transition. And now what we want to do is to point the time for this change to happen. Let's save it. Let's check it out. And now we can see that our transition is smooth. The change doesn't appear instantly on our website, but after some time. Now remember that using transition property, we should use it in the CSS rule of our element and not the CSS rule of our hover pseudo class, because it might not work how it's supposed to. The second thing to remember is that we should also use the unit at the end of the value, because this doesn't work. We have to place the seconds unit to see it's working. And the last thing is that if our change takes less than a second, this 0 at the beginning is not required. You can see this also works. But remember to keep this dot, because without it, we will point the time of the transition to 3 seconds. And as we can see, it's a little bit too long for a transition on our website. Definitely too long. So let's keep it like this. It's 0.3 seconds. And we'll get this cool effect on the button on our website. Thanks for joining me in this bonus material to the course, to its 13th and 14th day. I encourage you to check out the next bonus material of the next section of the course, Web Developer from Scratch in 30 Days. And I invite all the course participants to the next section of the course. I hope to see all of you very soon.